What's the first thing that comes to mind when you hear Persian Gulf? Is it skyscrapers piercing the clouds, endless luxury, artificial islands, and a constant race for world records? Forget all that. You've arrived in Oman. This is a country that said no to the skyscraper race to keep its soul intact. You won't find a glass jungle here. Instead, imagine the Norway of Arabia with stunning fjords, ancient fortresses, and landscapes that look like the surface of Mars. It's the anti-Dubai, and that's exactly why you'll fall in love with it. But wait, it's the Middle East. Yemen, Iraq, and Syria are right nearby. Isn't it dangerous? Actually, Oman is one of the safest countries in the world. It's often safer than Europe or the US. Terrorism is non-existent here, and crime is practically unheard of. Locals joke that if you forget your wallet at a cafe and come back 3 hours later, it'll still be there, or they'll have already delivered it to your hotel. How is that even possible in this region? Oman is a paradox. Just 50 years ago, life here was literally medieval. City gates were locked at night, and things like eyeglasses or radios were banned. Yet in just one generation, the country leapt into the future without losing its past. This is the land where Sinbad the sailor built his ships, yet today it's covered in perfect highways. It's a great maritime empire that once ruled lands from Africa to Persia. Welcome to the Sultanate of Oman. Let's dive in and see how it all works. Muscat begins here, at the Sultan Qaboos Grand Mosque. Any local will tell you this was the Sultan's gift to his people for the 30th anniversary of his reign. When you step inside, your jaw will drop. You'll see an 8-ton chandelier shimmering with Swarovski crystals and a carpet that took 600 women 4 years to weave by hand. Best of all, unlike many mosques in the region, non-Muslim tourists are welcome here. It's the perfect place to understand the Omani aesthetic. Expensive, yet understated and incredibly clean. Now, let's head to the opera? Yes, Oman has an actual royal opera house. Sultan Qaboos was a huge fan of classical music. While neighbors were building the tallest towers, he built a temple for the arts. Legends like Placido Domingo and Andrea Bocelli have performed here. This spot proves that Oman isn't just about tradition, it's about world-class culture. But if the opera is the suit and tie of Muscat, the Mutra district is its heartbeat. It's the oldest part of the city and its main port. We're walking into the Mutra souk. It's a total labyrinth. You can smell frankincense everywhere. It's Oman's greatest treasure, which we'll talk more about later. This is the place to haggle, get lost in the alleys, and pick up souvenirs. Unlike tourist traps in other countries, locals actually shop here. It's a living, breathing place. To see it all from above, we're heading up to Mutra Fort. These walls remember the Portuguese who tried to control the Indian Ocean trade. From its towers, you get arguably the best view of the city. Famous Corniche promenade curves right below you. And beyond it lies the turquoise Gulf of Oman, where modern yachts float alongside traditional fishing boats. Down below, the old city spreads out with its white houses packed closely together, topped by the minaret of the Al Rasul Mosque. And over there in Riyam part, see that massive white structure? That's a giant frankincense burner. It's a symbol of how Oman traded in fragrances for centuries. Built in 1990 to mark the 20th anniversary of the Sultan's reign, it's more than just cool architecture. It is the physical embodiment of Oman's soul and history. To understand its importance, you have to forget about oil. Long before black gold was discovered in Arabia, the real treasure of this land was aromatic gold, frankincense. Omani merchants carried this precious tree resin from the southern Dhofar region across the ancient world. Caravans crossed deserts, and dhow ships sailed oceans to deliver it to Egypt, Rome, Persia, and China. It was worth its weight in gold, used in temples of every religion,
as well as in medicine and perfume. The frankincense trade is what made Oman wealthy and influential. So this giant burner isn't just a landmark, it's a tribute to the era that shaped the nation's character. It's also a symbol of modern Omani hospitality. Step into any home, hotel, or even a mall, and you'll catch that tart, sweet, woody scent. That's the aroma that has been Oman's calling card for centuries. When you look at this monument, you're looking at the key to understanding this entire culture. You absolutely have to go up there. The views from that spot are truly special, perfectly complementing the panorama from the fort. While the fort gives you a close-up of the old town and the bay, the burner lets you see the whole picture. Essentially, it's another perfect vantage point to grasp the geography and scale of Muscat.
If you get tired of the heat and the stone, head to Al-Karam Park. But calling it just a park is actually an understatement. It's the city's vast green lungs, stretching for miles along the coast. Instead of stone walls, you'll find sprawling trees. Instead of narrow streets, emerald lawns. And in the center, a large man-made lake with fountains where ducks swim. During the day, in the peak of the heat, you really can just hide in the shade here. But the park's true life begins at sunset. It's the best place to see modern, non-touristy Oman, a magnet for locals and a spot for picnics and socializing. However, here's the main draw. Once a year, usually in January or February, this peaceful oasis is completely transformed and becomes the epicenter of the country's main event, the Muscat Festival. For a few weeks, the entire area turns into a giant, bustling, and incredibly colorful cultural fair. Pavilions from dozens of countries spring up here, where you can learn about their cultures, crafts, and cuisine. In a separate zone, a traditional Omani village is recreated, showcasing ancient crafts, national dishes, and folk dances. The park fills with amusement rides, concert stages, laser shows, and daily fireworks over the lake, while your nose follows the scents of street food from all over the world. In the many stalls, you can buy everything from Omani frankincense to souvenirs from Africa. Muscat looks like a perfect picture. Peaceful, beautiful, wealthy. But why is it like this? To understand, we need to look into the past, which reads more like an adventure novel. Look at the map. The country sits on the edge of the Arabian Peninsula. On one side is the endless desert, on the other, the Indian Ocean. For centuries, the wind decided the fate of this land. Monsoons blew one way for half the year and the other way for the other half. This turned the Omanis into the region's best seafarers. They were the long-haul truckers of the ancient world and the perfect middlemen, transporting spices and goods between India and Africa. But where there's big money and trade, invaders always follow. In the 16th century, the Portuguese arrived. They wanted control over the trade routes. The Lusitanians captured Muscat, burned cities, and built these very fortresses we admire today. They ruled here for 150 years. It seemed the Sultanate would become just another colony. But the people didn't give in. They united, drove out the colonizers, and did the unexpected. They became an empire themselves. In the 19th century, Oman was a maritime superpower, and the capital was even moved to the island of Zanzibar. Yes, that very one in Tanzania. The monarchy controlled the slave trade, spices, and gold. This was their golden age. But technology changed history. Steamships appeared, which didn't need Omani sails. The Suez Canal opened, and trade routes shifted. Oman lost everything. The country closed itself off from the world. By the mid-20th century, it was one of the most backward nations on the planet.
It's no surprise that until 1970, Oman was called the Tibet of the Middle East and even Islamic North Korea. And the ruling sultan at the time, Saeed bin Timur, was terrified of progress. Let's go over that list of ridiculous bans one more time. In Oman, you couldn't wear sunglasses, you couldn't listen to the radio, and you couldn't use umbrellas. Even riding bicycles was forbidden. There were only 3 schools in the entire country, and even those were for boys only. And all they could boast of was just 10 kilometers of paved road. The gates were locked after sunset, and if you walked the streets without a kerosene lamp, prison was a guarantee. People died from common curable diseases, while oil money just piled up in the Sultan's coffers. It's enough to make you cry. Now, get ready for a surprise. The son, the future Sultan Qaboos, studied in Britain. Pretty wild, right? And of course, a logical question arises. If the father banned everything, how did Qaboos end up in London? It was the dictator's irony. Saeed bin Timur hated progress for his people, but he understood that the heir needed to be able to communicate with their main allies, the British. Oman was under their protectorate then. The father sent his son to the Royal Military Academy, Sandhurst, hoping to get an obedient general. But he miscalculated. Qaboos returned not just as a soldier, but as a man with a Western mindset who had seen how people could live. That's why, afraid of his overly smart son, the father effectively placed him under house arrest for 6 years in the city of Salalah upon his return. Talk about a situation. Qaboos spent years in isolation, studying Islam and history. But on July 23, 1970, enough was enough. With support behind him, the young man carried out a bloodless coup. The British felt the spirit of the times. The old sultan was leading the country to ruin and losing a war against communists on the border. They helped Qaboos take the throne and guaranteed the father his life and safety, but only in exchange for his immediate departure from the country. The former sultan was put on a Royal Air Force plane and sent to London. He lived out the rest of his life in the luxury Dorchester Hotel, never seeing the changes. The young ruler's first words to the people sounded like a promise that was hard to believe. "We will have a new dawn." Contrary to the past, it didn't remain just a slogan. The treasury finally opened. Within a few years, instead of 3 old schools, 800 sprang up across the country, and modern highways appeared where camel trails used to be. But the main achievement wasn't the concrete, it was the treatment of the people. Sultan Qaboos declared a general amnesty, calling even former enemies back home with the words, "We need to build the country together." Those who were hiding in the mountains with weapons yesterday were becoming ministers and generals today. The monarch achieved the impossible, uniting scattered tribes into one nation. He erased the centuries-old border between coastal Muscat and mountainous Oman, creating a unified sultanate. That is why his portraits hang in every home, not by decree, but out of genuine love, because Qaboos gave the people more than just roads. He gave them back their dignity and pride.
To understand the soul of Omanis, you need to know one secret. We are used to hearing about Sunnis and Shiites, but Oman is the only Muslim country in the world where the main religion is Ibadism. This is a unique branch, often called democratic Islam. The core principle here is tolerance. Ibadists believe that only God, not other people, can judge a person. That is why you won't see religious aggression here. There is no morality police. No one will chase you with a measuring stick. Omanis are deeply religious, but they never impose their faith on others. In Muscat, mosques, Christian churches, and Hindu temples peacefully coexist.
For the Middle East, this is a rarity. Omanis say, "Your faith is your business, but your respect for me is our common business." This peacefulness has evolved into a unique policy. Oman is called the Switzerland of the Middle East. They have no enemies, none at all. When the US and Iran want to talk, they go to Muscat. When neighbors need to be reconciled, they call the Omanis. The strategy is simple: a friend to all, an enemy to none. Look at the neighbors to see the contrast. To the north, the Emirates with their glitz and race for records. To the south, Yemen, torn apart by war and poverty. Oman is right in the middle. It doesn't chase the hype of Dubai, but it maintains a stability that Yemen cannot reach. It is an island of calm in the hottest region on the planet, and it is this very balance that makes it ideal for travel. All right, enough sitting in the capital. Let's head deep into the country, where the real Oman begins. We start this journey by leaving the neighborhoods of Muscat and heading west. The road to the first location takes about an hour and a half, and in that time, the landscape completely transforms. The rugged ridges of the Al-Hajar Mountains, like sentinels, open the way to the true heart of the Sultanate. When you drive into Nizwa, time slows down. The former capital, a center of religion and trade, still lives by its own ancient clock. The main point of attraction here is the fort, a monumental structure built in the mid-17th century by Imam Sultan bin Saif of the Al-Yarubi dynasty. It took 12 years to build this citadel, and the funds for it were taken from spoils captured in battles against the Portuguese. Its circular drum tower, the largest on the Arabian Peninsula, stands unshakable, guarding the centuries. By the way, have you ever been inside this kind of fortification before? Behind the stern power of the sandstone lies a separate challenge and a genuine demonstration of the engineering minds of medieval fortifiers. The climb to the top is a path through dark labyrinths of narrow, gloomy stairs, where every step makes you feel the tension of the past. The passages are blocked by massive wooden doors that seem to remember the touch of warriors from those distant times. The space inside is saturated with military ruses and deadly surprises for uninvited guests. Deep pit traps lurk in the floors of the stairwells, and narrow stone gutters run along the walls. During sieges, through special holes in the ceiling, they poured not only boiling water, but also scalding date oil on the heads of invaders. It was cooked here in deep, cool storerooms where date juice dripped directly into huge containers dug into the floor. This syrup was both the primary treasure and the most formidable weapon. Today, the sweet residue of centuries is still palpable here, a case where history becomes tangible and even sticky, like that very dibs, the thick, syrupy, almost black molasses that has been produced from ripe dates for centuries. But once you overcome this path, the fort rewards you with a breathtaking panoramic view from the top of the tower, overlooking the legendary Nizwa souk and the surrounding city, nestled in the greenery of palm oases. Descending back down, you enter the heart of a massive local history exhibition, which is not just a museum in a single room, but an entire restored clay city inside the fortress walls. Its rooms fully recreate the interior of medieval Omani homes, allowing you to feel the atmosphere of the Arabian Nights. This is felt especially strongly in the evening, when the walls are lit with a soft glow, mimicking ancient oil lamps. In the halls dedicated to weapons and pride, you can examine in detail the khanjar, the famous Omani dagger, with a curved blade that is fastened to the belt at a specific angle, as well as small traditional shields. Omani history is not just about wars, but deep enlightenment. A separate hall is dedicated to scholars, theologians, and historical figures. Maps and displays emphasize that while many regions of the world were in decline, science and trade flourished here. Looking at the faces and images of the past captured in the exhibition, you begin to realize that the country's cultural code is sewn into the most unusual details. One of these is the women's masks, the burqa. What's striking here is the fact that there was never a single standard for this accessory in Oman. Each ancient tribe had its own mask shape, sometimes quite specific or even intimidating, which served as a kind of visual passport. Meeting a woman in such a mask, a local could unerringly determine her origin and status. And right at the entrance to the museum section, where the ticket office is located, an encounter with true eternity awaits you. A drawing carved into a clay wall that is over 6,000 years old. On this ancient artifact, images of camels and, most amazingly, ships are clearly visible. These petroglyphs bear silent witness to the fact that seafaring and nomadic life were the foundation of this land at the very dawn of human civilization, long before the first stone of the great fort was laid. The fort was ready for months of total isolation. It was built directly over an underground stream that provided the garrison with fresh water, while the cellars held supplies of ammunition and food. Over 100 armed guards were constantly on watch at the top of the tower, and 480 cannon ports allowed for fire so dense that approaching the fort unnoticed was impossible.
But as soon as you take a step beyond these impenetrable walls, the stern spirit of the fort flows into the commercial rhythm of the Nizwa souk. Today, the market is divided into two worlds, the renovated pavilions of the new souk and the labyrinths of the old souk, hidden behind massive arches. Here, among rows of silver and antiques, you won't see open forges with hammers. This is a place of quiet and expensive trade. Khanjar daggers and antique rifles simply wait for their owners on velvet displays. However, an entirely different energy boils at the Al-Munada auction. Criers walk among the crowd, lifting rare barrels and silver blades high above their heads. Experienced traders know the true price of a khanjar lies in its hilt. Whether it be wood, bone, or stone, it is the carving and age that determine its value. For an Omani, this is not just a souvenir, but a passport of honor and the primary symbol of male dignity, without which it is impossible to imagine a single wedding or important visit. In the antique shops of Nizwa, a khanjar is a serious asset. The cost of rare specimens, with a massive hilt made of zaraf, can reach 16,000 rials. Buyers at the auction check the rifle bolts and the balance of the steel on the fly, for such a blade will become a family heirloom passed down from father to son. Beside them stand massive mandus chests and copper dala coffee pots gathered from the best workshops in the region. People come here to choose quality that will survive generations. Moving on. Gradually, the air fills with a thick, enveloping aroma of cardamom, rosewater, and burnt sugar. This is the quarter of the Omani halwa makers. Today, varieties of the finished product stand right on the counters, but in workshops like the famous Al-Saif, it is cooked right in your presence, continuously stirred with oars in huge copper mirkal cauldrons, a mixture of rosewater, saffron, and nuts. Everyone is given a taste. This is part of the local etiquette, a way to appease the guest before a purchase. To cut through this sweetness, it is worth ordering a glass of cool sugarcane juice.
The vendor takes a handful of tough green stalks, usually grown right here in the oases of Nizwa, and with a crackle runs them through a press. The secret of this elixir is in the balance. A generous portion of pungent ginger, fresh lemon juice, and a handful of fragrant mint are added to the cane base. Thus, a frothy emerald cocktail is born, the most honest, natural energy drink of these parts, which changes your entire perception of taste and feels truly marvelous. If you're lucky enough to be here at dawn on a Friday, you will find yourself in the epicenter of primal energy, the Friday cattle market. This is a tough man's game, where psychology and experience decide everything. Dust hangs in the air, and the atmosphere vibrates with shouts. Traders lead goats, sheep, nervous bulls, and even camels in a circle, seeking eye contact with a buyer. Show the slightest interest in an animal, and the seller will begin to apply pressure, hiking up the stakes as they go. Right there in the crowd, fathers stand with their growing sons. Boys are accustomed to the noise and trade from the cradle, learning on the fly to recognize the best breed and feel the moment for a deal. While the Bedouins complete their laps, resellers wait in the shade to intercept the most promising animals before the auction reaches its peak. This is absolute real-life theater with not a single drop of staging for tourists. As soon as you pass through the gates of the noisy market, just look around. Falaj Daris Park is right nearby. Only 5 minutes, the arching air is replaced by life-giving coolness. You can take refuge from the market bustle right here, in the shade of trees and palm groves, where tranquility eternally murmurs. This is the main artery of the city, which begins high in the mountains. There, in deep underground layers, rainwater accumulates, which then flows into Nizwa by itself through man-made tunnels in a continuous stream. The uniqueness is in the fact that even in the most intense heat, the channel remains full. In the past, the irrigation time for every patch of land here was divided literally by the stars, but today it is simply the perfect place to kick off your shoes, lower your feet into the crystal stream, and let them be massaged by tiny fish. Walking along, you imperceptibly wander into the abandoned Al-Akhdar quarter. Its labyrinths are experiencing a renaissance. Conceptual cafes and hotels are opening among the ruins. In Nizwa, they prepare various delicacies, but the Shuwa meat is considered the gold standard. This dish is a true symbol of Omani cuisine, the secret of which is hidden underground. A tanur, a deep pit, is used for its preparation. Lamb, generously rubbed with a blend of spices, is tightly wrapped in banana leaves and placed in woven sacks. All of this is lowered into a red-hot oven directly on the coals and sealed airtight at the top. In this thermos, the meat simmers for up to 48 hours until it becomes as tender as butter. When the oven is finally opened, a thick aroma of smoke and spices spreads across the area, and the treat itself literally melts in your mouth. What is especially valuable is that preparing Shuwa still remains an important community ritual. One underground oven is often used by several families at once. People lower their sacks into it, marking them with name tags, so that 2 days later they can gather again and share this ancient taste. The day ends in the spirit of a modern majlis. Today, these are not carpets spread out in the squares, but stylish terraces and cozy courtyards of the old city. To tell the truth, this generally has little connection with the past. In any case, you won't encounter this custom in its primordial form quite so quickly here. Yes, there are places where people gather on soft pillows to drink bitter kahwa with honey dates over leisurely conversations, but in general, it can be said that Nizwa is acquiring an increasingly European look. However, there is room to debate here. Perhaps we just didn't find it. But Nizwa is also a gateway to other worlds. Just a 15-minute drive south, you enter the province of Manah. Today, this place meets you with an incredible contrast. Right among the desert plains rises an architectural masterpiece of the 21st century, Oman across ages, whose sharp forms resemble the Al-Hajar mountain ranges. This is the largest museum in the country, where thousands of years of Omani history come to life with high technology. It is worth stopping in for at least an hour to see how the Sultanate made the leap from the Middle Ages into the future. A vibrant addition to this progress is the new Manah Park, a massive project covering 120,000 square meters. Its foundation was laid by the personal decree of the late Sultan Qaboos, but due to the scale of the vision, construction turned into a long-term project. Only in 2022, under the current ruler, His Majesty Sultan Haitham bin Tariq, was the park officially opened to the public. This is a technological garden in the middle of the desert, where more than 100 date palms and thousands of decorative plants have been planted, and 4 high open-air amphitheaters have been built for cultural events. This place is the perfect buffer between the modern and the ancient. But just a couple of kilometers from these modern landscape sites, time stands still. You enter Harat al-Bilad, one of the largest and most significant traditional settlements of the monarchy. It is a colossal labyrinth consisting of 450 mud homes and 4 ancient mosques surrounded by a defensive wall with fortified gates. Set aside at least an hour or even 2 for a walk. Climb the defensive towers such as Burj al-Qas to see the endless sea of palms from above. Pure bliss. Be sure to find the Al-Ali Mosque. It was founded back in 1145. Its walls remember times when these lands were just beginning to flourish. In the 1970s and 80s, with the start of the oil boom, residents left these cramped homes for new villas, but the oasis itself remained alive. Manah continues to breathe through 2 powerful arteries, the Al-Qatan and the Masrouk channels. This ancient irrigation system, which we mentioned above, feeds incredibly fertile land where farmers still grow not only dates, but also wheat, sugarcane, lemons, papaya, and alfalfa for livestock. Even the local market, though small, was carefully restored in traditional style, preserving the atmosphere of old trade. Strolling here, you will notice the main architectural mystery, Al-Fayqeen. It is said to be the only fortress in Oman that originally had no doors at all. The defenders climbed inside using ropes from hidden openings at a great height, turning the castle into an impenetrable monolith. Today, Manah is a unique example of the Omani way. People have moved into the future, but every morning they return to their ancestral gardens, maintaining a connection with the land that has fed them for 9 centuries.
Leaving behind the silence of the past, we head west toward the most mystical spot in the region, Bala. This is a city of potters and ancient legends, dominated by the massive fort of the same name. While the Sultanate is home to over 500 defensive structures, this citadel is unique. Its unbaked clay walls appear to be a natural extension of the cliffs. It's hard to believe this was actually built by human hands. At the base of the fortress complex stands the Old Friday Mosque, a symbol of spiritual depth and simplicity. On the outside, it is notably modest, but inside lies a masterpiece, a 14th-century mihrab featuring incredibly intricate plaster carvings. For centuries, this city served as the Great Wall of Oman, and its settlements and palm groves are still encircled by an 8-mile ring of protective walls. Walking down to the market, you enter the heart of the local craft scene. Bala is the birthplace of Omani pottery. Here, multi-generational masters work in a style that is unmistakable. Their heavy, reddish clay vessels are fired in kilns using techniques that are thousands of years old. In the souk itself, time seems to stand still among the maze of old shops. Without any big city flash, you can find authentic antiques and catch the heavy scent of dried herbs. The contrast between the rugged power of Bala and the elegance of the next stop is striking. Before you is Jabreen Castle, a refined residence for philosophers and imams, which served as a 17th-century university where medicine, law, and astronomy were studied.
While guides usually point out the thickness of the masonry, the real beauty lies in the painted ceilings, where the patterns have kept their original colors. It's a complex labyrinth of secret staircases, hidden rooms and halls with carved windows that provide natural cooling. The most significant areas, like the Sun and Moon Hall, were designed so that light enters at specific angles, highlighting the status of this intellectual sanctuary. Moving further toward the base of the mountain range, we arrive in Al-Hamra, famous for its multi-story houses made of red clay. These structures have stood for 4 centuries and look set to last for 4 more. If you climb a bit higher up the slope, the road leads to Misfat al-Abriyen, a living mountain village perched on steep cliffs. The site is breathtaking. Houses are built directly onto massive boulders, and life follows the rhythm of ancient irrigation channels under the shade of banana palms. However, truly rugged paths and absolute solitude wait even deeper in the mountains, in the small village of Mistan. This place is a ghost on the map. The trail to Mistan is only for experienced drivers in properly equipped vehicles, but the payoff is worth it. Stone huts are literally built into the precipice, and in the silence you can hear water rushing through the channels. This is arguably the most secluded and authentic spot in the region. Still, Oman's nature reveals its best features gradually. Descending from the heights back into the valley, we cross the border between 2 mountain massifs. But before tackling the main Omani ridge, it's worth going underground into Al-Huta Cave to see the subterranean lake and its rare blind fish. This massive underground system is a true labyrinth, millions of years old. Here, beneath the heavy limestone arches, time stands still. The echo of footsteps fades among strange stalactites, and the humid air smells of ancient stone. The main secret is hidden in the very heart of the cave, in a silent lake where unique pink fish live in total darkness. Naturally blind, these unique endemic species have lived in total isolation for centuries, turning this place into a living laboratory of evolution. Once you leave the cool underground and step back into the bright valley sun, the horizon reminds you of the main goal. We return to the highway, and after about 25 miles, we reach Birkat al-Moz, the gateway to the Green Mountain. This is where the gentle terrain ends, and the road finally climbs toward the sky. From here on, the altitude dictates the rules. The ascent to Jebel Akhdar is a serious safety test. Both the police and common sense strictly require one thing: 4-wheel drive only. A patrol waits at the entrance to the switchbacks. Officers check documents and vehicle specs. A sedan or front-wheel drive crossover will definitely be turned around. This strictness isn't just because of the steep climb, but because of the extreme stress on the brakes during the way down. On these long descents, standard brakes can overheat and fail in minutes. An SUV, however, allows you to descend safely using low gear and engine braking. If your vehicle isn't up for these conditions, there is another way. Right at the base, in a secure parking lot, you can leave your car and hop into a licensed mountain taxi. Experienced local drivers will take you to the top and show you the hidden corners of the plateau that might be intimidating for a first-timer. After conquering the long series of switchbacks, we pull over at a viewpoint near the end of the climb. Signs confirm the elevation: 5,951 feet. From here, the path you've traveled looks incredible, and the towns in the valley below look like toys. But we're not at the top yet. A few more sharp turns open up a completely different world, the Syke Plateau. At an altitude of over 6,500 feet, the thin air changes everything. Even when the asphalt is melting in the valley below, you'll definitely need a warm sweater up here. The temperature is consistently about 27 degrees lower than in the scorching valleys, so keep that in mind. Don't be fooled by photos of people in light clothing. The bright mountain sun creates an illusion of warmth during the day. But as soon as it slips behind the ridge or you step into the deep shade of the terrace gardens, the chill sets in instantly. When planning this climb, remember the rhythms of nature. To catch the peak bloom of the famous Damascus roses, you need to be here between late March and mid-May. During these weeks, the air on the steep stone terraces is filled with a thick fragrance as locals begin harvesting petals for rosewater. Following the roses, closer to fall, the pomegranate orchards ripen. It's that same scent we noticed at the start of the trip while trying fresh halwa in Nizwa. But if these flowering slopes look like paradise to you, the next point on the map will show you a completely different, rugged side of Oman.